The first time Vivian Wallace said my name in my truck, it felt like trouble. I was driving her home because her husband told me to. Mr. Wallace, my boss, does not ask twice. He just says what he needs, and you do it. That night, the desert heat was still hanging in the air even though the sun was gone. My old Chevy's AC was fighting for its life. Vivian sat in the passenger seat so quiet, I could hear the turn signal clicking like a nervous heartbeat. Then she turned her head toward me and said, soft as a secret, "Caleb, let's go somewhere more private." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Private?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I thought I was taking you home." She looked out the windshield like she could not stand the idea of seeing that house again. "Not his house," she said. "Not tonight." I should have said no right there. I should have taken her straight back to that gated place with perfect hedges and a driveway so clean it looks like no one actually lives there. I sell cars for a living. I'm not a hero. I'm not a therapist. I'm definitely not the guy who gets involved with his boss's wife, but something about her voice made it hard to pretend I didn't hear the pain under it. Let me back up. My name's Caleb. I'm 30, living just outside Phoenix in a small apartment that's more practical than comfortable. I work at a mid-tier car dealership. Half the lot is shiny new sedans. The other half is used trucks with too many miles and not enough stories you want to hear. The job isn't glamorous, but it pays the bills. I'm good at it because I don't push. I let people breathe. My boss calls it a calming presence. I call it not wanting to fight anyone. I've always kept life simple. Work, home, repeat. I keep people at arm's length because it hurts less. A few years ago, I thought I had something real with a woman named Sarah. She was a graphic designer with a laugh that made you want to be better. We dated for 2 years. She wanted bigger things, bigger city, bigger life. I didn't. She left for Denver, and I stayed here learning how quiet a place can feel when you're alone. Mr. Wallace runs the dealership like a tight ship. He's 52, lean, always controlled. He's not cruel, but he's not warm either. When he speaks, people listen. When he looks at you, you feel like he sees what you're hiding. I respect him. I also fear him, if I'm being honest. His wife, Vivian, has always been a mystery. I'd seen her at holiday parties and charity events. She's 38, always dressed like she stepped out of a magazine. Tailored dresses, subtle jewelry, hair pulled back like she never has a loose strand. But it was her eyes that stuck with me. Sharp, yes, but sad too, like she was smiling for other people, not for herself. We never really talked, just polite nods. That was the line. Boss's wife. Employee. Keep it clean. Then came that Friday evening. The dealership was quiet. The last customer had left. I was shutting down my computer, ready to go home and sit on my couch with a cold soda and pretend my life was fine. My phone buzzed. Wallace. "Caleb," he said, calm as always. "I need a favor. I'm stuck in a meeting with investors across town. Pick up Vivian and drive her home. She's at the coffee shop on 7th Street. My stomach tightened. "Sure," I said, because saying no to Wallace isn't really a thing. "Good man," he replied, then hung up. No details, no thanks, just business. I locked up, climbed into my beat-up Chevy, and drove toward 7th Street. The coffee shop was one of those trendy places with exposed brick and string lights, the kind that charges $6 for a latte, and acts proud of it. Through the window, I spotted Vivian at a corner table, alone, staring at her phone like it was giving her bad news. She wasn't dressed like she usually was. No sleek dress, no heels, just a simple white blouse and jeans. Her hair was down, framing her face. She looked smaller somehow, more human. I walked in. The bell above the door jingled. Vivian looked up and met my eyes. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she gave a small nod, like she'd been expecting me. "Caleb," she said, "Wallace sent you." "Yeah," I replied. "He's tied up. Asked me to drive you home." She stood, gathered her purse, and followed me out without another word. In the parking lot, the heat clung to us like a blanket you can't kick off. I opened the passenger door. She slid in. I walked around and got behind the wheel. The engine rumbled. The silence between us felt heavy, but not awkward. More like something unsaid was sitting in the middle seat. "Home's not far," I said, forcing a casual tone. "Should be there in 15. Vivian didn't answer right away. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her fingers twisted the edge of her blouse like she was holding herself together. Then she said it. "Caleb," she murmured, "can you not take me home?" Quote. I glanced at her. "What do you mean?" She kept her eyes forward. "Somewhere with music," she said. "Somewhere with people. Anywhere that's not his house." The way she said his house made my chest tighten. Not our house, not home, his. I swallowed, looking back at the road. "Okay," I said before I could talk myself out of it. "I know a place." Quote. I turned the truck away from the direction of her neighborhood and headed toward the edge of Phoenix, where the city lights soften and the streets feel less judged. The place I chose wasn't fancy. It was an older lounge bar called the Desert Note, tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop. I'd been there a few times after Sarah left, when I needed noise to keep my thoughts from winning. Vivian stayed quiet during the drive. The radio was off. All I could hear was the hum of the engine and the occasional rattle in the dashboard. Her perfume, light like jasmine, mixed with the worn leather smell of my seats, and it made me too aware of how close she was. When we pulled into the gravel lot, the neon sign flickered red over the door. Vivian stared at it, like she was stepping into another life. "You sure?" I asked, holding the door for her. She nodded. "I'm sure." Inside, the lighting was dim, the air smelled like cedar and whiskey, and a slow jazz tune curled through the room. A guy on a small stage strummed a guitar. People sat in quiet clusters, talking low, like everyone had agreed to keep their secrets here. We took a table in the corner, close enough to feel the music, but far enough to feel hidden. Vivian sat across from me and exhaled like she'd been holding her breath all night. When the waitress came by, Vivian ordered red wine without looking at the menu. I ordered a non-alcoholic beer because I didn't trust my own judgment right now. Vivian wrapped her fingers around the wine glass when it arrived, staring into the deep red like it was a memory. "You know," she said finally, voice soft under the music, "I used to be a piano teacher." I blinked. "You did?" Her lips curved into a small, fragile smile. "Before I married Wallace." Something in my chest shifted. Vivian Wallace, the polished woman from company parties, teaching piano to strangers in a quiet room. It didn't fit the picture I had of her, and that made me want to know the real one even more. "Why'd you stop?" I asked. Her smile faded. She took a sip. "Wallace said it was a distraction," she said. "He said the sound gave him headaches. So I sold the piano." The words set between us. 8 years of silence packed into one sentence. Vivian looked at me then, really looked at me, her sharp eyes unguarded for the first time. "Do you ever feel," she asked, "like you're living someone else's life, Caleb?" I opened my mouth, but no answer came out. And that's when she leaned forward, lowered her voice, and said the same words again, the ones that made my pulse jump in my throat. "Let's go somewhere more private." For a second, I thought I misheard her. We were already tucked in the darkest corner of the Desert Note, hidden behind a fake plant in a low wooden divider. The bar was dim, the music was soft, and no one was paying attention to us. But the way Vivian said it made the room feel smaller, like the air shifted. "More private?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "Vivian, this is pretty private." She didn't smile. She didn't flirt. She just stared at her wine, like she was trying to decide if she should take another sip or throw the glass across the room. "I don't mean that," she said quietly. "Not like that." My chest loosened a little, but not all the way. "Then what do you mean?" Vivian finally looked up at me. Her eyes were sharp, but there was something tired in them too, like she'd been holding herself together for years and was running out of tape. "I want to say things out loud," she said. "Things I can't say in that house. Things I can't say to him." I swallowed. "Okay," I said. "We can talk here." She shook her head once. "Here, I still feel watched," she admitted. "Not by these people. By him. By who I'm supposed to be." I didn't know what to do with that. I wasn't used to women like Vivian opening up to me. I wasn't used to any woman opening up to me anymore, if I'm honest. After Sarah left, I trained myself to keep everything easy and shallow. Safer that way. No big feelings. No big risks. But Vivian was sitting across from me like she was on the edge of something, and I could feel it. I took a slow sip of my non-alcoholic beer. The bitter taste grounded me. "What would feel private enough?" I asked. She glanced toward the stage where the guitar shifted into a slower tune. Then her eyes came back to mine. "Your truck," she said. "Just for a little while, park somewhere. No music, no strangers, just quiet." That should have been my line. That should have been the moment I stood up, paid the tab, and drove her straight home. But I looked at her, really looked, and I didn't see danger in her face. I saw a woman who felt trapped. I saw someone who hadn't been heard in a long time. "Okay," I said, my voice careful. "We'll go sit for a bit, then I take you home." Vivian nodded like that was fair, like she didn't want to push too far. "Thank you," she said, and the words sounded heavy, like she didn't say them often. We left the bar, with the music still curling behind us. Outside, the desert air was cooler now, and the city felt quieter. The neon sign flickered above the door, like it was blinking tired eyes. In the truck, Vivian sat the same way she had earlier, hands folded in her lap. But now her breathing was faster, like she was preparing for something. I drove a few minutes until we reached a small overlook at the edge of a park, the kind with a view of the city lights spread out like glitter. I parked under a streetlight that buzzed faintly. I turned off the engine. The sudden silence felt loud. Vivian exhaled and leaned her head back against the seat. "This," she said, "this is what I needed." I didn't know if I should face her or keep looking forward. I chose the safer option and stared at the dark windshield. "So," I said, keeping my voice calm, "tell me what you can't say at home." Vivian's laugh came out dry. "Where do I start?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke like the words had been piling up behind her teeth. "I used to have a life," she said. "Not just a schedule, not just events and dinners and looking perfect. I used to teach piano. I used to have students who made me feel like I mattered." "You matter now," I said without thinking. Vivian turned her head toward me. "Do I?" she asked. "Or do I just look good next to him?" The question landed in my chest. I didn't have a smart answer. I only had the truth. "I don't think you're decoration," I said, "but I can tell you feel like you are." Vivian's eyes flicked down to her hands. Her fingers were twisting now, like she couldn't stop them. "Wallace isn't cruel," she said. "Not in the obvious way. He doesn't hit me, he doesn't scream, he just decides. Everything. The house, the trips, the friends, the rules." I pictured Wallace's office, the leather chair, the expensive cologne, his calm voice that never changed. I knew that control. I lived under it every day at work. I just never thought about what it would be like to live under it at home. "I tried to tell myself it was fine," Vivian continued, "that being taken care of was enough. But I feel like I'm fading, like I'm watching my own life through glass." I turned toward her then, because I couldn't keep staring forward like this wasn't real. "Why tonight?" I asked. "Why ask me?" Vivian swallowed. "Because he asked you," she said. "Because you're safe." My stomach tightened again, but in a different way. "Safe?" I repeated. She nodded slowly. "You don't look at me like I'm a prize," she said. "You don't try to impress me. You just exist, and you listen." I didn't know how to respond. I felt the urge to joke it away, to keep it light, but the quiet in the truck didn't allow it. "I listen because I know what it feels like to be alone," I admitted. Vivian's eyes softened. "Sarah," she said, like she already knew. I blinked. "How do you know about Sarah?" She hesitated, then said, "I heard Wallace mention it once. Something about you being steady, not like other guys. He said you don't bring drama." I let out a humorless laugh. "Yeah," I said, "I don't bring drama. I just carry it around inside." Vivian's mouth lifted slightly. "That sounds familiar." Silence settled again, but it wasn't awkward. It was full, like we were both standing in a doorway neither of us had walked through before. Vivian shifted in her seat, turning her body a little toward me. "Caleb," she said. "Yeah?" I don't want to go back tonight, she admitted. My heart stuttered. Vivian, I said carefully, I can't take you to my place. I'm not asking for that. She cut in, quick. I'm not asking you to ruin your life. I held her gaze, trying to read what she was really saying. I want one more hour, she said, voice smaller now. Just one more hour where I'm not Mrs. Wallace, where I'm not performing, where I can breathe. I felt something pull in me, a mix of compassion and caution. Because I wanted to give her that hour. And because I knew exactly how dangerous it was. Okay, I said. One more hour. Vivian's shoulders relaxed like she'd been waiting to hear that. She looked out at the city lights, blinking slowly. I used to play a piece, she said. When I couldn't sleep, it always calmed me down. What piece? I asked. She smiled faintly. Claire de Lune, she said. It's beautiful, soft. Like a secret. I nodded. I've heard it, I said. I don't know it well. It's the kind of song that makes you feel things you didn't plan to feel, she murmured. I glanced at her. Her eyes were on the lights, but her voice sounded like it was aimed at me. You know what scares me? She asked. What? I said. That I might be too far gone, she said. That even if I leave, I won't know how to be myself again. The honesty in her voice hit me. It was raw and quiet and real. And before I could think better of it, I reached into the console and pulled out a small pack of gum, the only thing I had that felt like an offering. It's not much, I said, holding it out, but it's peppermint. Helps when you feel sick. Vivian stared at it, then laughed softly. Are you trying to medicate me now? She asked. Maybe, I said. It's the only medicine I've got. She took a piece, unwrapped it, and put it in her mouth. Then she looked at me, her eyes catching the streetlight through the windshield. It is bitter, she said. I smiled despite myself. Yeah, I admitted. It is. Vivian chewed slowly, then whispered, I think I need something stronger. My breath caught. Vivian, I said carefully, what are you saying? Quote. She leaned closer, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath. I'm saying, she murmured, that if I go back tonight, I'm going to disappear again. Then her phone buzzed in her lap. She looked down, and her face changed. I saw the name on the screen reflected faintly in the glass. Wallace. The name on her screen made my stomach drop. Wallace. Vivian stared at it like it was a warning light. Her thumb hovered over the phone, but she didn't answer. The buzzing stopped, then started again a second later. I kept my hands on the steering wheel, even though the engine was off. My heart was pounding so hard it felt loud in the quiet truck. Are you going to pick up? I asked. Vivian swallowed. If I answer, he'll hear my voice, she said. He'll know I'm not home. He'll know something is different. You can tell him you needed air, I said. You can tell him I took you for a drink and drove you back. She looked at me, and the sadness in her eyes cut straight through me. He doesn't care where I've been, she said. He cares about control. He cares about what it looks like. The phone buzzed again. This time, Vivian hit silence and set it face down in her lap like it burned. I didn't know what to do. I was the employee. She was the boss's wife. And somehow I was sitting in a dark truck at a park overlook while she confessed she was disappearing. Vivian, I said carefully, I can't fix this. I know, she whispered. I'm not asking you to fix me. Her voice cracked on the last word. She pressed her fingers to her forehead like she was trying to hold herself together. I just need someone to see me, she said. Just for one night. I stared at the city lights. They looked calm from up here, like everything was fine. It made me want to laugh, because nothing felt fine. I turned slightly toward her. What happens if I take you home right now? I asked. Vivian's lips pressed together. I walk into that house, she said. He asks if I'm okay without looking up from his phone. I say yes, because that's what I do. Then I go upstairs and lie awake, wondering how I became a person who needs permission to breathe. Quote, the words hit me hard because I knew something about that. Not the rich house part, but the trapped part. The feeling that your life is already decided and you're just playing along. I nodded slowly. Okay, I said. We'll handle this smart. Vivian looked at me. Smart how? First, I take you home, I said. Not because I want to, because if Wallace starts calling me, I need to be able to say I did what he asked. Second, you don't have to go inside right away. We can sit in the driveway for a minute. You can breathe. Third, if you want to talk again, we do it in daylight. Public. Safe. Vivian blinked like she didn't expect me to have a plan. "You'd do that?" she asked. I swallowed. "I don't know what I'm doing," I admitted, "but I do know you shouldn't be alone in this." She stared at me for a long moment, then she nodded once. "Okay," she said. "Take me home." I started the engine. The rumble filled the silence like a rescue line. Vivian turned her phone back over and watched it the whole drive, but Wallace didn't call again. That scared me more than if he had. When we pulled up to the gated house, it looked the same as I'd always imagined. Big, perfect, cold. The porch light was on. No movement inside, no welcoming feeling. Just a building that belonged to someone with money and rules. I put the truck in park. Vivian didn't move. "You can sit a minute," I said gently. She nodded, staring at the front door. "Thank you," she said, voice quiet, "for not making me feel crazy." "You're not crazy," I said. "You're tired." Vivian's mouth trembled like she was fighting tears. Then she opened the passenger door. Before she got out, she paused and looked back at me. "Caleb," she said. "Yeah?" Her eyes held mine. "You didn't have to do this," she said, "but I'm glad you did." I didn't trust myself to say something smart. I just nodded. Vivian stepped out and walked up the path. I watched until the door closed behind her. Then I drove away with my chest tight and my hands shaking on the wheel. I told myself that was it. One strange night, one detour. I'd go back to selling cars. She'd go back to being Mrs. Wallace. We'd both pretend the night never happened. That lasted about 8 hours. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "It's Vivian. Thank you for not leaving me alone last night." I stared at the screen like it was a bad idea and a lifeline at the same time. I typed, "Anytime," then deleted it. I typed it again and hit send. Anytime. The rest of the week I threw myself into work, trying to scrub Vivian out of my mind. The dealership was busy with end-of-month pressure. Customers argued about trade-ins. My coworkers joked too loud. The fluorescent lights made everything feel flat. Wallace was around more than usual. He walked the lot with that calm control, nodding at people like he owned the air. He didn't mention the favor. He didn't ask how the drive went. He just looked at me once like he was measuring something, then moved on. I told myself that meant I was safe. Then Vivian texted again. Coffee. Camelback Road. Noon. My throat went dry. I should have said no. I should have protected my job. I should have protected my life. But my fingers already knew what to do. Sure. See you there. At noon, I sat across from her in a small coffee shop tucked between a bookstore and a yoga studio. Vivian looked different than she did at company events. No tailored dress, no perfect hair. Just a simple shirt with the sleeves rolled up and her hair in a loose bun. She looked tired, but real. "You came," she said, like she had been bracing for me to disappear. "I said I would," I replied. Vivian held her coffee cup with both hands. "I left the house," she said quietly. "Not forever, not yet, but I'm staying with a friend for a few days." My heart thumped. "Did he fight you?" I asked. She let out a laugh that sounded hollow. "He didn't," she said. "He said, 'Do what you need to do,' like I was returning something to a store." That made my chest ache in a way I didn't expect, not because I wanted to be her hero, because I hated that she had been alone inside a marriage. "What are you going to do?" I asked. Vivian's eyes flicked up. There was a small spark there. "I'm looking into teaching again," she said. "A community center needs music instructors. It's not fancy, but it's mine." "That's good," I said, and I meant it. Vivian stared at her coffee like she was trying to believe her own words. "I want to live, Caleb," she whispered, "not just exist." We met a few more times after that. A quick walk through a park. Lunch at a taco stand near the dealership. Small moments that felt dangerous because they felt honest. Vivian talked about old students, about the way people's faces change when they realize they can do something they thought they couldn't. I told her about my dad teaching me how to fix cars before he passed, and how I still smell motor oil and think of him. She listened in a way that made me feel seen, which annoyed me because I didn't want to need that. But I did. And the more we talked, the more I realized the line I was crossing wasn't just about Wallace. It was about me. About how I'd been living safe and small since Sarah left. About how I'd been hiding behind routines so I wouldn't have to risk wanting anything. Vivian wasn't asking me to save her. She was waking me up. Then on Monday morning, Wallace called me into his office. The door shut behind me with a soft click that sounded final. His office smelled like leather and expensive cologne. He didn't look up from his desk. "Sit," he said. I sat, my pulse already racing. Wallace lifted his eyes to mine, calm as ever, like this was just another business conversation. "I know about the bar," he said, "and the coffee shops, and the walks." My stomach dropped so hard it felt like my body forgot how to breathe. I opened my mouth to explain, but Wallace raised his hand. "Don't," he said. His voice stayed steady, and somehow that was worse than yelling. "Vivian has been different lately," he continued. "And I know you're part of it." I sat there frozen, realizing in one horrible second that my job, my routine, my whole simple life was hanging on what he said next. Wallace leaned back in his chair and looked at me like I was a problem he could solve. "You're a good salesman, Caleb," he said. "Don't throw that away." Then he paused, and his eyes sharpened just a little. "Because you will lose more than you gain." Wallace's office felt colder than the showroom. He leaned back in his chair like he had all the time in the world, like my panic was just another file on his desk. His voice stayed calm, and that calm was the scariest part. "You will lose more than you gain," he said again. My mouth was dry. "Mr. Wallace," I started, trying to sound steady, "it's not what you think." He didn't blink. "I didn't say what I think," he replied. "I said what I know." I swallowed. "Vivian needed a ride," I said. "She didn't want to go home that night. I took her somewhere with music. Then I brought her back. That's it." Wallace stared at me for a long moment. It felt like he was deciding if I deserved the truth or the punishment. "I'm not blind, Caleb," he said. "My wife has been restless for years. She finds someone who listens, someone who makes her feel alive, and for a moment she believes she can change her life. Then reality hits." He leaned forward slightly. "And you think you're the exception?" I shook my head. "I don't," I said. "I never thought that." Wallace's lips pressed into something that wasn't a smile. "Good," he said. "Then you understand what I'm saying." I sat there with my hands clenched on my knees. I wanted to defend Vivian. I wanted to tell him she wasn't a thing to be managed. But the truth was, he wasn't asking my opinion. He was warning me. "Leave it alone," Wallace said. "Whatever this is, stop." The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush me. I stood up because staying in that chair made me feel small. "Yes, sir," I said, because that's what he wanted. I walked out of his office and straight into the bright chaos of the dealership. Customers laughed. Sales guys joked. Phones rang. And none of it mattered. All I could hear was Wallace's calm voice in my head. "You will lose more than you gain." That night I sat in my apartment with the AC humming and the TV on mute. I stared at my phone. Vivian's last message was still there. "You okay?" I stared at it until my eyes burned. I didn't want to disappear on her. I also didn't want to lose everything. Then I realized something that made my chest tighten. I had already been losing everything for years. I just didn't call it that. I called it steady. I called it simple. I called it safe. But safe had started to feel like a cage. I texted her back. "Can we talk tomorrow? Somewhere public." Her reply came fast. "Yes." The next day I met her at the coffee shop on Camelback Road. She looked tired but stronger, like the last few weeks had turned something in her from brittle to sharp. The moment she saw my face, she knew. "He talked to you," she said softly. I nodded. "He knows," I admitted, "about the bar, about us meeting." Vivian's jaw tightened. "Of course he does," she said. "He watches everything." I leaned forward. "Vivian, I need to be honest. I said. I can't do this the wrong way. I can't be your secret. I can't be the thing he points to and says, "See, you were the problem." Vivian's eyes stayed on mine, steady. "I never wanted that," she said. "I never wanted to drag you into this. I walked into it," I said. "I chose it when I turned my truck away from your house." Quote, Vivian's fingers wrapped around her coffee cup. "Then what are you saying?" she asked. I took a breath. "I'm saying I care," I admitted. "But I'm also saying I'm not going to keep living scared. Not of him. Not of losing a job. Not of wanting something real." Vivian's eyes softened, and for a second she looked like she might cry. "Caleb," she whispered, "I'm trying to leave. I really am. I'm staying with my friend. I'm applying for the community center job. I'm starting again." "I know," I said. "And I'm proud of you." Vivian gave a small, tired laugh. "You're proud of me," she repeated, like she didn't hear that often. I nodded. "I am." We sat there in a quiet moment while the coffee shop moved around us. People typed on laptops, cups clinked, a barista called out names. Normal life happening beside our mess. Then Vivian leaned in a little. "He didn't fight me leaving the house," she said, "but he's going to fight me being free, not with yelling, with pressure, with money, with quiet threats." My stomach twisted. "Then you need support," I said. "Real support." Quote. Vivian's eyes searched mine. "And you?" she asked. "What do you need?" The question surprised me. No one asked me that anymore. "I need to stop hiding," I admitted. I'd been doing it since Sarah left. I told myself I was fine with small. But I wasn't. I was just scared. Vivian reached across the table and her fingers brushed mine. It was a soft touch, but it landed like a decision. "Don't let this hold you back," she said quietly. "I don't want you to lose your life because of me." I stared at our hands. Then I looked up. "I already made my choice," I said. Vivian's breath caught. "What choice?" she asked. I swallowed. "I'm leaving the dealership," I said. "I'm resigning." Her eyes widened. "Caleb," she said, voice sharp with concern, "you don't have to do that." "I do," I replied, "because every time I walk into that showroom, I feel his eyes. I feel the control, and I can't sell cars for a man who treats his wife like a decoration." Vivian's eyes glistened. "That's not your responsibility," she whispered. "Maybe not," I said. "But it's my life, and I'm tired of living it for other people." I handed in my resignation a week later. No drama, no big speech, just a letter on Wallace's desk and a quiet exit. My last day, Wallace didn't stop me. He just watched from his office window as I walked across the lot. He didn't look angry. He looked like a man letting something go because he still believed he owned the ending. I took a job at a smaller dealership across town. Less pay, fewer shiny cars, more honest people. It was a step down on paper, but it felt like a step toward breathing again. Vivian kept moving forward, too. She stayed with her friend longer. She started teaching piano again at the community center, 3 classes a week. She sent me a short video once. A kid playing a shaky song, Vivian's voice patient and warm in the background. It made my chest ache in a good way. Then came the day it finally settled. Late afternoon, Phoenix was painted in orange and pink, the sun low over the desert. I was at a gas station off the highway, filling my truck, trying to pretend I wasn't waiting for my phone to buzz. Then I heard my name, Caleb. I turned, and there she was. Vivian stood beside a small blue hatchback, a grocery bag under one arm, jeans, loose sweater, hair in a messy bun. She looked like a normal woman running errands, and somehow that made her look more beautiful than any dress I'd ever seen her in. "Vivian," I said, and a smile hit my face before I could stop it. "Didn't expect to see you here," she said, her eyes bright with a spark I'd missed. "I could say the same," I replied. She shifted the grocery bag and looked at my truck. "You burn through gas like you're on a road trip." I laughed. "Just keeping the wheels turning." Vivian's smile lingered. Then her face grew serious in a quiet way. "You got a minute?" she asked. "Want to grab a coffee or just drive somewhere?" I should have said no, not because I didn't want her, because wanting her made everything feel dangerous again. But I had promised myself I was done living scared. "Yeah," I said. "Let's drive." We got into my truck. The radio stayed off. The engine rumbled low as we pulled onto the road. Phoenix faded behind us, and the desert opened up ahead, wide and quiet and honest. The windows were down. Warm air rushed in, carrying dust, and that sharp desert smell that always feels like home to me. "Where to?" I asked. Vivian looked toward the horizon. "Doesn't matter," she said. "Just keep going." So I did. After a while she spoke, like she'd been holding this in all day. "I signed the divorce papers last week," she said. "It's done." My chest tightened. "How do you feel?" I asked. Vivian laughed softly. "Scared," she admitted, "but free." We drove past cacti and low hills, the sky slowly turning darker, the first stars starting to show. It was quiet in a way that felt healing. "I'm teaching again," she said. 3 classes a week, mostly beginners. One guy is almost 70 and refuses to read sheet music. I smiled. "That sounds like trouble." "It is," she said, and she laughed, real and warm. Then she turned her head and looked at me. "I meant what I said before," she told me. "I didn't need you to save me. I just needed someone to see me. You did that." Quote. My throat went tight. "You did the same for me," I admitted. "That night woke me up." Vivian's eyes softened. "So what now?" she asked. I kept my eyes on the road, but my voice was steady. "Wherever you want," I said, "as long as you're okay with me driving." Vivian smiled and looked back out at the desert like she could finally breathe. "Deal," she said, "but I'm done with plans for a while." The road stretched out ahead of us, open and endless. Vivian reached over and rested her hand lightly on mine near the gear shift. Not a promise, not a confession, just a quiet choice. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not trying to fix me, for just being there." I squeezed her hand gently. "As long as you keep getting in this truck," I said, "I'll keep showing up." She leaned her head against the window, a soft smile on her lips. "For the first time in my life," she said, "I don't feel like I'm just someone's wife." The sun finally dropped behind the hills, and the sky turned deep and wide. We kept driving. No destination, no rush, just 2 people moving forward into something that finally felt like our own.